Discover 5 spine-chilling tales of sinister secrets hidden in haunted small towns. In Willow Creek, shadows extend longer than they should, the air crackles with unspoken fears, and even laughter seems to echo with a haunted resonance. A once quaint diner stands at the edge of town, and in it works Sarah, a single mother trying to make ends meet. But beneath the surface of syrup-sticky tables and cheap coffee lies a darkness that pulses, waiting, watching. Every night as Sarah wipes the counter, her heart is heavy, burdened by the weight of late bills and a restless daughter, Lily, who dances with spirits that seem mischievous. "Mommy, look," is her delighted refrain, but what Sarah sees sends shivers through her bones. The flickering neon sign outside the diner casts ghostly shapes that crawl along the walls like phantoms. Yet tonight is different. Sarah's hands tremble as she unlocks the door to the backroom, only to find old newspapers gathering dust. The headlines scream at her local children go missing. And Pastor's kindness masks sinister intentions. Goosebumps rise on her arms, each story whispers secrets of a town that hides its curses well. The ghostly visions of children, their faces forever frozen in terror, invade her mind. "Mommy?" Lily's soft voice cuts through the mounting dread. Sarah forces a smile through her rising panic, but her heart races, pounding a warning that something is very wrong. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the shadows deepen, Sarah feels a burgeoning sense of helplessness. She sits at the diner's counter, the laughter of late-night patrons feels deafening now, almost mocking. The clang of dishes echoes like a funeral march. The flicker of the light seems to whisper threats as they die, plunging the room into a suffocating darkness. But when the harvest festival approaches, the town feels alive again, vibrant and bustling, yet Sarah's heart pounds wildly in her chest. She clutches Lily's hand too tightly. "Stay close," she warns, but as the sun dips below the horizon, a chill grips her, the scent of dread lingering. Suddenly, amid the sea of revelers, laughter turns to screams. Sarah spins, panic rising like bile. "Lily," she cries, her voice hoarse as she shoves through throngs of masked faces. But where is her little girl? The world closes in, suffocating, police brush off her frenzied pleas, dismissing them as simple mischief. No one cares about her terror. As fear claws at her throat, she approaches the only neighbors she ever trusted, faces once warm now twisted in indifference. "We've all got our battles," one whispers, another nods, the look in their eyes chilling. Paranoia runs thick, trust eroded by secrets. Each mouth that once spoke comfort now spills tales of the pastor, a façade of kindness hiding a heart blackened by sin. Dawn looms, and desperation clings to Sarah like a shroud. Just when she thinks she senses a flicker of hope, a piercing scream cuts through the dawn's fragile stillness, freezing her in place, breathless. Willow Creek's grip tightens, and she finds herself at the edge of an abyss. What if the real monster isn't lurking out there but wears a smile, whispering prayers? How far will she go to save her daughter in a town steeped in deceit? As the screams linger in the air, Sarah steels herself for the battle ahead where trust is a currency no longer esteemed. The sun rose over Willow Creek but cast little light on Sarah's heart. Each ray felt like a taunt, mocking her desperation. She slumped against the diner counter, sleep-deprived and haunted, with her mind spiraling back to Lily's laughter, now a memory tainted by dread. "Mommy." The voice was closer now, echoing in her memory, like a ghost trying to break free. She rubbed her eyes, forcing the visions away. The din of the diner buzzed around her, but it felt distant, unreal. Patrons clinked forks against plates, but their laughter morphed into sinister chuckles. When she glanced up, each face appeared twisted, as if a dark cloud loomed over the room. "Sarah?" A voice broke through the haze. It was Hank, the diner's gruff cook. His brow was slick with sweat, and for a fleeting moment, concern flickered across his face. "You all right, darlin'? Where's Lily?" She snapped, her own voice echoing her panic. "Just outside with the carnival, I reckon." He trailed off, the look in his eyes betraying him. "You're worrying too much," he finally said, a hint of false comfort in his tone. That false comfort betrayed her belief in anyone's good intentions. Sarah could feel the town wrapping tighter around her, tightening its grip. How could she trust when every adult was an architect of silence? She had to act. With a decisive breath, she slammed the door and stepped into the daylight. The Harvest Festival pulsed with life-vibrant colors, bright lights, the scent of caramel apples and roasted corn, but all she could smell was fear. "Lily!" She called out amidst the throng, scanning the crowd again, heart racing. Children dashed past her, unburdened, oblivious to the dark undercurrent surging through her own heart. Each moment stretched into an eternity, and her desperation deepened. She turned toward the center of the festival where the Ferris wheel lit the sky in bursts of color. Wading through laughter and merriment felt wrong, it was a veil over the darkness. Nearby, a group of children giggled, but their eyes betrayed something more sinister. Were they watching her? Were they part of the shadows creeping around the festival? The pastor was right there, shaking hands, his smile unnervingly warm. As she locked eyes with him, dread pulsed inside her. "Do you believe the festival can save this town?" he asked, voice smooth like honey, yet laced with something darker. A chill raced down Sarah's spine. "It's supposed to be a time for joy," she responded, feeling as though she were trapped within a sick joke. "Joy," he mused, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Sometimes joy is merely a mask we wear to hide our sins." She spun, scanning for her daughter again, knowing time was slipping. With every step, dread surged in her chest. Panic clawed at her throat until she felt she could scream, but she had to stay strong. "Lily!" Then she saw at the carousel, music twirling through the air like a dark lullaby. Her breath caught, children were riding, laughing, faces gleaming. But there, in the center, Lily, her small frame bobbing, head thrown back in glee. "Mommy! Look!" Fury ignited within Sarah, a mix of relief and rage. "Get away from there!" she shouted, forcing her way through masked figures, sweat dripping down her back, each step heavy, slow trust eroded with every face. As she reached the carousel, however, the merriment faded, and the ride faltered, twisting until the lights dimmed. Shadows pooled around her, and something shifted, an urgent whisper, a call from the dark. Then she froze. A cold grip clamped around her heart. All those faces turned 100 eyes, too many, watching. They weren't just onlookers, they were part of something. Something old and gross that wouldn't let them go. Understanding it now, it felt as if the entire town conspired against her. "What is happening?" she whispered, dread swallowing her words. From the corner of her eye, the pastor's smile widened, eclipsing her realization this wasn't just a festival, it was a gathering, a ritual underwoven with sin. And then, amidst it all, Lily's laughter turned to silence. The carousel stopped, a heartbeat of stillness lingering, and Sarah's world tilted. "Lily?" Nothing but shadows answered, swirling, creeping fingers of darkness cast by the fading festivity. The air thickened, fear stung her lungs as dread clawed deeper. Familiar faces twisted in grotesque mirth, and all at once, she knew. The festival wasn't meant to celebrate, it was a cover for something sinister, something waiting, lurking. As the whispers rose, Sarah's heart pounded louder, the answer curling around her mind. If she didn't move quickly, what would become of her daughter? With every passing moment, the town tightened its hold, demanding a reckoning. "Lily?" Sarah screamed, searching for the truth hidden beneath the laughter. The gasp that followed her plea cut through the haze. It didn't come from her daughter. A suffocating silence followed her scream, expanding like a dark wave. Sarah's pulse thudded in her ears, drowning out the false cheer that had surrounded her moments before. She searched frantically, eyes darting between masked faces, shadows shifting as if they were alive. Each moment felt like an eternity, each face an accusation. Then, a girl's giggle echoed, a cruel imitation of Lily's laughter, shattering the stillness. Sarah spun around, her body primed for flight, instinct clawing at her chest. This couldn't be happening. The carousel loomed above her, its colors dulled, a grotesque sentinel now. "Lily!" Panic punctuated her voice, desperation twisting inside her like a knife. The laughter ended abruptly, replaced by the hushed murmurs of the crowd unveiling their sinister purpose. Something felt wrong, deeper than she could fathom. As if they were all in on a dark secret that screamed at her to flee. "Over here." A familiar voice cut through the distortion. Sarah's heart seized. She turned, spotting a figure darting behind a food stall, a fleeting glimpse of golden hair. "Lily!" The name burst from her lips like a prayer, and she tore toward the stall, weaving through the throng. But the closer she got, the more those twisted faces echoed her daughter's name, their whispers curling around her like smoke. "Join us," they hissed, urging her toward the darkness just beyond the light. "No!" She shouted back, defiance igniting within her. "I want tea." But doubt, that insidious seed, began to sprout. Could they help? Had they taken Lily? With each step, the crowd morphed, swirling like a storm of malice, eyes gleaming with a hunger that sent chills racing down her spine. The town felt alive, breathing, pulsating with a dark heartbeat. She dashed behind the stall, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The vibrant energy of the festival felt like poison now, tainted and rife with shadows. "Lily!" "Mommy!" The voice was muffled, a soft plea carried away by the wind. Sarah's heart stopped. She raced toward the Ferris wheel, dimly lit now under a blanket of dusk. It loomed like a skeletal giant, enveloped in whispers that seemed to call to her, begging her to uncover the truth buried beneath the festival façade. "Lily!" she shouted, desperation trembling through her voice, drawing the attention of a few nearby. Those same faces smiling, twisted, they shifted closer, lips moving in synchronicity, a chant droning around her. Join us, join us." The energy swirled in a tempest around her, and she stumbled back, skin crawling, as if unseen hands reached toward her, begging to ensnare her in their spell. "Lily!" Her own voice began to crack, fear eating at her resolve. The light flickered, twisting shadows undulated, tugging at her perceptions. Reality seemed to fold in on itself, time bending. With furious determination, Sarah turned away from the sounds, her instincts screaming to get away. She sprinted toward the last grain of hope, the shadows where Lily's voice had come from. But the crowd pulsed, undulating, eyes narrowing in unison. They stepped closer, closing the gap. "Lily!" Sarah spiraled through the mass, her tears blurring her vision, each step bringing her deeper into a thicket of bodies. No one moved to help her. Instead, they leaned in with an eerie synchrony, laughter taunting like banshees in the night. Just as she thought she would crumble, she spotted an opening, a mere sliver of freedom. She bolted through it, feeling the piercing chill of a hand graze her arm, but she pushed harder, bursting through to the other side. The ground fell away as she plunged into a dark tent that had gone unnoticed. Shadows clung to the edges, curling like smoke, but at least it was away from their eyes. She gasped, "Lily!" But the tent was empty, save for flickering lights and eerie silence. Cold dread wrapped around her heart, threatening to strangle her. Then, from behind a curtain, faint giggles echoed, now distorted, twisting in the air. Panic shot through Sarah. She stepped forward, hand outstretched, as the breath of something sinister washed over her, tinged With a scent of decay and something sweet candy? Mommy? The voice was soft, a beacon ripping through the dark terror. Sarah whirled, eyes adjusting to the starlit corners of the tent. But, as she drew closer, the laughter came again. It wasn't Lily's at all an echo, an illusion. No, no, no. The walls closed around her, shadows shifting, forming shapes behind her that felt all too warm yet cruel as they closed in. And then, right before her eyes, the curtain parted, and she froze. There, illuminated in flickering light, stood a figure draped in shadow, a smile wide enough to slice through terror, a glimpse of familiarity twisted with malice. "Welcome back, Sarah." The word slithered through the air, thick and oily, drowning her in dread. The realization hit hard, wrapping her in despair. This wasn't about the festival, it was about something much darker. "Join us." And as the walls murmured, the ground trembled beneath her, she knew there was no escape. What had she unleashed, and who was really in control here? Could she save her daughter before they took everything from her? A sickening laugh erupted from the figure in the shadows, shattering the silence like glass. Sarah stumbled back, the threat of that grin freezing her breath. "What do you want?" The words scraped her throat, barely a whisper. "But you're already here, my dear," the figure cooed, stepping forward. The flickering lights revealed a face both horrifying and disconcertingly familiar, her sister, Emily. Only it wasn't Emily. It was a sick imitation, hollowed out and twisted, an echo of the woman she once knew. "You didn't think you could just run away, did you? Emily?" A chill spread through Sarah's veins. "Is that really you?" Doubt laced her voice, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "Of course." The creature mocked, tilting its head. "Join us, Sarah. It's so much fun." As it spoke, the shadows thickened, curling closer, seeping into Sarah's skin, trying to crawl their way into her mind. A shiver ran down her spine, an invisible hand gripping her heart. She turned, heart hammering in her chest as memories flooded back, family gatherings where laughter filled the air, the warmth of summer evenings playing in the park with Lily, Emily's unyielding protection. But that warmth seemed like a lifetime ago, corrupted by the malice filling the tent. "Where's Lily? What have you done?" Panic surged, every second felt like an eternity. The distorted version of her sister only laughed again, a sound so twisted it morphed into a cacophony of shrieks echoing from all around. "Lily's been waiting, sweet sister. She belongs to us now, don't you see? Just like you." The word "you" dripped with venom, each syllable echoing as if from countless mouths, shadowy figures closing in from every direction now. "No." Despair clutched at Sarah, narrowing her vision. With each breath, the tent felt smaller, the walls pressing in, swallowing her hope. She spun around, seeking an exit, but the laughter of the masked crowd echoed through the fabric, resonating with a malevolence that screamed of dreams cut short and innocence stolen. "Join us." The chant rose like a tide, threatening to engulf her reason. Each unfamiliar face was alight with a frenzy, eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. They thrummed with anticipation, waiting. In a blind panic, she lunged toward a corner of the tent, gripping the fabric as if it might tear away her reality. Instead, it clung to her like a shroud, weighing her down, dimming her resolve. Memory sharpened the edges of her desperation. Those masked figures were once townsfolk, local families, friends. What had twisted them into this nightmarish caricature? In this frantic moment, she felt an odd pull from deeper within the tent, tantalizing and dark. It beckoned as if calling out to her lost daughter. "Lily!" She cried again, voice raw with emotion. But this time, the echo came not just from her mouth, it was answered by something lurking in shadow. The air grew thick with the smell of burnt sugar and something sickly sweet, drawing her deeper into the darkness. "Lily!" The name tasted like acid, burning her throat as she pressed on, stepping toward a darkened space that shifted ominously before her. "What's in there?" She breathed, sweat pooling in the small of her back. She could see shifting shapes, barely formed echoes of memories twisted into horrifying shapes. Every time she thought she could pull away, shadows clung tighter, as if warning her not to advance. A little giggle rang out again, this time more coherent. "Mommy, I'm scared." Her heart lurched forward, propelled by raw instinct. There was no time left, no choice but to push forward. The moment she crossed into the darkness, the laughter of the crowd morphed into discordant howls, but everything inside her screamed that this was the path to her daughter. But with this path came a cost. What lay beyond was unknown, potentially worse than the hell she had just emerged from. She took a deep breath, ready to defy everything that had brought her to this moment. In the distance, a figure shrouded in more shadows emerged. "Welcome, Sarah." And then she understood with chilling clarity, the festival had always been about more than just a night of fun. It was a masquerade hiding a sin she could never escape. What horrifying truths awaited beyond that threshold? Could she truly save Lily, or was it already too late? The darkness enveloped Sarah, swallowing her whole as she stumbled into the shadowed recesses of the tent. The air was stifling, thick with the scent of decay and lingering sweetness that twisted her stomach. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to run from the chilling familiarity that wrapped around her like chains. But the memory of her daughter's voice pushed her forward, each desperate echo of "Mommy, I'm scared," slicing through her resolve. "Lily." She called again, her voice trembling, swallowed by the oppressive gloom. The shadows twisted, moving like living things, coiling around her feet. They whispered secrets she wasn't meant to hear, tales of loss and sorrow, of darkness consuming light. The laughter from outside faded, replaced by a heavy silence, a stillness so profound it made her ears ring. The figure ahead stepped closer, emerging with a fluid grace that was unnatural, its form shifting, morphing between shadow and substance. "She's just around the corner, Sarah," it taunted, voice like honey speckled with poison. "Come take a look, dear sister." With a surge of anger, Sarah stumbled forward, heart racing. "Stop. What have you done to her?" The shadows quivered, laughing softly yet cruelly, swirling around her as if they were the audience to some ghastly performance. "She belongs to us now. Just like you will." The grotesque figure blinked, and for one horrifying moment, it looked like Emily again, her sister's eyes alive with a malicious glint. But then the illusion shattered, revealing a void where hope had once flickered. "Lily!" Sarah shouted again, the conviction in her voice faltering as dread filled the space around her. There was movement beyond the figure, something fragile yet familiar. She pushed past it, her body trembling with every step, the shadows biting at her heels as she fought against the pull urging her to stay. The deeper she went, the more twisted the memories became. Voices echoed, friends and family, joyous laughter merging into screams of anguish. Masks obscured familiar faces, twisting smiles into grotesque sneers. Each step felt like sinking into a bog, each breath dragging her deeper into despair. But then she saw it, a shadow curling around the corner, something small and trembling. Hope sparked in her chest, pushing back the darkness suffocating her spirit. "Lily?" She reached out, every ounce of love fueling her resolve. A little figure appeared, barely illuminated by the flickering lights overhead, shaking with fear. "Mommy?" The voice was near enough to break her heart in two, but as she stepped closer, something shifted. A loud groan erupted from the inside of the tent, like the growl of a monstrous beast that had just awakened from a long sleep. "Stay back." The creature's voice warned suddenly, sharp and dangerous, echoing with a multitude of screams. The figure flared, and Sarah realized it was more than just shadows. The darkness itself churned, hungry and chaotic, alive with malicious intent. "No. I'm not going anywhere without her." The defiance rose from her throat, burning like wildfire through her veins. But the shadows lurked closer now, an army of nightmares creeping between her and Lily, mingling with the scent of burnt sugar that turned her stomach. "Do you wish to join the eternal mask?" The voice murmured, dripping with sickening sweetness. You can be whole again. Whole? Sarah spat, rage inflating her heart. Is that what you call this? The ground beneath her trembled, a deep rumble radiating up her legs. She stumbled backward, nearly losing her footing. In the midst of her panic, the figure before her shifted, revealing not just a reflection of Emily, but dozens of faces intertwined with twisted grins and hollow gazes. Join us! They all sang in unison, the cacophony rising in volume, drowning her in a surge of voices that merged into a discordant symphony of dread. What do I have to do? She shouted, desperation lacing her voice. But before she could hear the answer, the shadows lunged, rushing toward her in a dark tide. The choice is yours, they echoed, their intentions unclear, sinister still. With terror surging through her, Sarah sensed she was losing control. But before she could act, the shadows recoiled and a pathway opened, leading deeper into the unknown. Clutching her breath, Sarah realized she stood at a precipice. Somewhere in that darkness, her daughter might still be waiting, but at what cost? What sinister fate awaited her should she choose to step forward? Sarah held her breath, the cold grip of terror tightening around her heart. The path that opened before her was suffocating in its darkness, a gaping maw that beckoned her deeper, promising answers tinged with the thrill of dread. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her as the shadows swayed, coaxing her into their embrace. Lily! I'm coming! She shouted, the words flying from her lips in a mix of fear and fury. She stepped forward hesitantly, feeling the floor shift beneath her. Each step felt like walking over fragile glass, ready to shatter into shards of despair. The air felt electric, crackling with something dark and ancient. The deeper she ventured, the more overwhelming the darkness became. It was no longer just a lack of light but something sentient, draping differently across her skin, almost caressing her as it tightened. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to turn back. But the image of her daughter, trembling and scared, pushed her onward, her instincts at war with her maternal drive. Mommy! The voice broke through the suffocating silence like a beam of light breaking through the storm. It was so close now. A flicker of hope ignited within her, shining defiantly against the oppressive gloom. But then, just as she thought she pressed forward, the ground rumbled again. The shadows shifted wildly, creating a chaotic dance that sparked a new fear in her heart. They whispered hard truths, seductive lies, possibilities that twisted and turned in her mind. Join us, be whole, they hissed like distant thunder, coaxing her to join the very darkness she wanted to defy. No! I refuse! Sarah screamed against the cacophony of torment. It was then she noticed the tunnel. It twisted off to her left, supposedly leading to some deeper horror. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Was it Lily? The thought was almost enough to drown her in hope. But suddenly, something glimmered at the edge of her vision, illuminating the shadows for a fleeting moment. Faces formed within the darkness, tormented expressions full of anguish, pleading eyes captured forever in sorrow. She stumbled back, every instinct compelling her to flee, but Lily's echo pulled her in. Mommy, please. This time, the voice wasn't just an echo. It was filled with desperation. Hold on. I'm coming. More than anything, she needed to reach her daughter. The shadows twisted, screeching with displeasure, but she brushed against their fingers, igniting them with her defiance. Around her, the air began to swirl. A cyclone of sorrow erupted as the voices cried louder, filling her head with chaos. You can still join us. You can find peace, a new family. The grotesque faces morphed together, moments of happiness twisted into pain, holding out to her like withered flowers. But Sarah wouldn't yield. A vision of Lily nestled in another's embrace, a world stolen from her, surged into her heart. I don't want your peace. She cried out, her voice rising above the tumult. I want my daughter. A rush of cold air knocked her off her feet, sending her sprawling. The shadows closed in, swirling beneath a thick blanket of darkness, nearly suffocating her. She felt fingers close around her wrist, a cold grip that sent ice coursing through her veins. What happens if I don't choose? She gasped, clutching her heart against the fear paralyzing her. In response, the shadows erupted in laughter, a booming resonance echoing off the canvas walls of her confinement. You will join us in despair forever alone. Just another broken soul. Terror gripped her. With every ounce of conviction, Sarah climbed to her feet, teetering on the precipice of the abyss. I will find her. With a surge of fury, she dove into the darkness, surrendering to the inevitable. But as her surroundings collapsed into even deeper shadow, she felt another presence, a flicker of warmth fighting against the chill. And just as she reached out, a flash of light exploded around her, revealing not just darkness but the scattered cages of captured memories, a labyrinth of lost souls, and somewhere in that maze Lily's frightened face, looking back at her. Mommy. The call was louder this time, mixed with something else, fear or malaise. Beyond the veil of shadows, Sarah stood at the threshold of a terrifying choice that had the power to echo through eternity. But as she took her next step towards her daughter, she realized she was not just fighting for Lily. The eternal mask's hold on her was tighter than she'd ever imagined. Would they both escape the clutches of despair, or would they become mere whispers lost in the shadows forever? The light faded around her, leaving only the corridors of darkness splitting in every direction. The warmth she felt evaporated, replaced by a biting chill that snaked down her spine. Sarah's heartbeat resonated loudly in her ears as she stood at the edge of the abyss, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Lily. The name cracked like thunder through the silence, and yet, the only response was the cascade of whispers that returned, slithering around her. They seemed to grow hungry, gnawing at her consciousness. The faces from before flickered back into view, now pressing closer, their eyes wide and accusing. She steadied herself, forcing her feet to move. The maze stretched before her, branches of shadow that twisted and turned like a malignant web. With every step further into the unfathomable expanse, Sarah could feel the shadows shifting, almost reacting to her defiance. Mommy. The voice was clearer now, echoing around her like a mantra, each repetition twisting like a knife in her gut. Mommy, help me. The urgency strummed through her, igniting a fire deep within her chest. Sarah maneuvered through the labyrinth, heart racing, every nerve alive with dread. But the shadows were thick here. They pressed against her, their touch a slick film of cold, and she could feel their desperation, a violent urge to pull her back into their depths. Join us, they hissed, the very air thick with their cravings. You won't have to suffer. You can be free. She clenched her fists, not freeing a single ounce of her will. I will not. I'll fight you. Her resolve shattered the discordant whispers momentarily, and she forged ahead, moving past twisted cages of memories. Each chamber told stories of despair, mirrors reflecting the dark paths of lost souls, lost lives. Yet through it all, there was a flicker of light, Lily's light beckoning her forward. But anxiety clawed at her insides, gnawing harder than the shadows. What if she was too late? What if the darkness claimed her daughter permanently? A silhouette darted at the corner of her vision. Instinctively, Sarah sprinted towards it, her legs moving faster than the fear, but the shadows twisted, blocking her path. They clawed at her clothes, snagging her like barbs as she stumbled. Mommy! The cry was desperate, ripping the air apart, and suddenly the shadows fell silent as if frozen in time, engulfed in a thick tension. Her heart raced, sensing the presence of something else, darker. Then, from above, a piercing scream erupted, a sound so visceral it made her skin crawl. She looked up, eyes widening. A massive figure loomed, shrouded in blackened mist, slowly descending. It was both terrifying and captivating, the embodiment of anguish and sorrow, looking down at her with empty, gaping eyes. Lily! She screamed again, but this time the dread weighed heavy on her, each word a struggle. Mommy, it hurts. Her daughter's voice drifted in, woven through the shadows, barely more than a breath now. The figure behind the veil stirred, and Sarah felt the atmosphere shift, the weight of despair tightening around her neck like a noose. With one final surge of hope, Sarah charged toward the source of the voice, the air thickening until she felt it might crush her whole. "I'm coming. I'll save you." But as she lunged forward, the shadows caught her, constricting like serpents, the echo of her daughter's pained cry drowning in the growing cacophony of laughter. "Lily!" She shouted again, the desperation clawing at her throat as she fought against the pull. Suddenly, all noise ceased. Silence blanketed the space, broken only by the sound of her frantic breathing. She felt the floor split beneath her, as if the abyss was opening wide to swallow her whole. And in that pause, the towering figure drew closer, its eyes glinting with an ancient hunger that reverberated through her very being. "Choose wisely," it rumbled, the voice shaking the very core of her existence. A moment of clarity shot through Sarah. Was this the moment of judgment? Would she surrender to the darkness to save Lily, or risk everything for a glimmer of hope? The thoughts twisted and squeezed as panic surged. What choice would she make, and would Lily be lost in the shadows forever? The moment hung heavy, the figure's voice echoing like thunder in her ears. The abyss yawned beneath her, an open mouth consuming all light. Sarah felt her strength waver. The shadows tightened, and her heart thundered against her ribs like a caged animal. Everything inside her screamed to give in, but instinct fought back. "Lily!" She gasped, the name caught in a whirlwind of despair. The darkness pulsated, feeding off her fear. It whispered sweet promises, the fabric of reality twisting around her thoughts. "You're a good mother, Sarah." Sacrifice for her let go, but her daughter's pained voice cut through. "Mommy, please." It clawed at her heart, a desperate plea for salvation. Determined, Sarah pushed against the mounting tide of despair. A flicker of courage rose within her. "I will not," she shouted, forcing the shadows back with her conviction, feeling them recoil like frightened beasts. "I will save her." With newfound resolve, she looked for a path through the darkness. Here, it felt alive. Each step resonated as if it were watching her, waiting for the moment she would falter. She inhaled deeply, each breath laced with icy air that chilled her bones. What if she was wrong? What if the haunting shadows were right? But she couldn't dwell on that doubt. She moved forward, each step becoming a small rebellion against the shadows wrapping around her. Spindly fingers reached out, grazing her skin like the icy touch of death, whispers swirling into her ears. Join us, the tempters promised her freedom from the agony of losing her child. "Shut up!" She screamed back into the void, her voice a fragile echo. But the fear was palpable, crawling under her skin. The laughter returned, haunting and sinister, reverberating through the air. "You are losing control, Sarah. You were never meant to fight, only to surrender." As she pushed deeper into the shadows, the atmosphere grew moist, heavy, filling her lungs with dread. Images flickered before her eyes, children playing under a warm sun, laughter echoing in the air. But those moments twisted, reshaping into horrifying visions. Lily trapped in the web of darkness, begging for release. The contrast was unbearable. "Mommy! Don't leave me!" Lily's tiny voice echoed, sounding so far away. Panic seized her heart. "I'm coming, Lily!" she yelled, fury igniting her resolve. A shaft of light appeared in the distance, illuminating a path that beckoned her forward. The shadows hissed, furious at the intrusion, but the warmth of that light felt like a lifeline. As she stumbled toward it, Sarah could feel the magnitude of the lurking figure behind her gathering weight. She could sense something sharp, a breath of malice breathing down her neck. "You are foolish," it growled, the words wrapping around her like steel chains. "No." The light surged brighter. It was hope, it was love, it was everything she had fought for. She sprinted forward, mind hazy yet focused on reaching that glimmer. The shadows clawed at her heels, pulling at her with desperation, but she fought them off, her will bending but not breaking. I will save her. I want to let you take us. As the light enveloped her, the figure howled a sound so sorrowful that it shivered through the air, shaking the very ground beneath her. With one last push, Sarah burst into the light and stumbled to the ground, breathless. Lily! She cried, searching the white expanse that surrounded her, stretching as far as her eyes could see. But the brightness flickered, shadows creeping at the edges, testing her resolve. And in that lingering moment of hope, her heart sank. Where was her daughter? Find her or lose yourself, the figure's ominous whisper drifted back, echoing in her mind. In the light's deceptive calm, Sarah stood frozen, terrified of what came next. Where did she go from here? Time trickled away, anxiety crawling up her spine like icy fingers. What waited for her on the other side of the light? The darkness still whispered, and a chilling realization settled over her: maybe this wasn't over yet. The light flickered erratically, revealing shapes that danced just beyond the reach of clarity. Each heartbeat resonated within Sarah's chest, a hollow echo drowning out the soft whispers of hope. Lily? Her voice trembled, swallowed by the vast emptiness around her. But nothing replied. It was eerie, how silence hung heavy, thick enough to suffocate. In that absence, the past clawed its way back. Every moment she hesitated, every choice made in fear. Was this her punishment for failing to protect her daughter? The thought rattled in her brain, unsettling and vile. Suddenly, from the very edges of the oppressive void, shapes began to coalesce. They were shadows, twisted and contorted, teasing at the corners of her vision. You broke our bond, Sarah. You left her, they hissed in unison, their voices rising into a terrifying symphony. Fear gnawed at her heart, a biting reminder that such a connection could be severed. No! She shouted, desperation rising like a tidal wave. She stumbled forward in search of her daughter, each step pushing back against the whispers clawing at her resolve. Lily! I'm coming! The ground shifted beneath her, each step feeling like stepping on a taut wire, fragile and teetering. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A small figure, barely visible, danced just beyond the periphery of her vision. Hope surged. Was that her daughter? Mommy! It was a soft plea, a thread wrapped in innocence, yet it birthed a monstrous unease deep within her soul. She lunged toward the voice, heart racing, the shadows howling in protest, clawing at her ankles in anger. Get away from her! She screamed. But as she reached out, the little figure wavered. It morphed, growing darker, features shrouded in shadow, until it became a nightmarish reflection of Lily, her eyes hollow, cheeks sunken. The sight pierced Sarah's heart, a knife twisted in despair. Mommy, help me! The figure begged, its voice echoing impossibly loud. No! You're not my Lily! With a wild swing of her arm, Sarah turned away, fighting the urge to leap into the darkness that beckoned. The shadows tightened, and laughter surged around her, a cruel parody of innocence. Stay! Join her! You know you want to. She staggered back, a wave of nausea crashing over her as the depths of their words twisted in her mind. Could she just give up? Let them engulf her? The idea moiled in her heart like poison, alluring and sickening all at once. But Lily, she couldn't abandon her. Lily! I'm here! Sarah called desperately, staggering forward again, pushing against the pulsating darkness. In response, the shadows writhed, digesting her words, merging into a grotesque mass of limbs. If you love her, let go now. Embrace the shadows and save yourself. No! Each syllable crashed against the murky walls of the abyss. What would giving in mean for her daughter? The ground trembled violently as the figure of shadows morphed into something larger, something terrifyingly familiar. You'll lose everyone, Sarah. This place thrives on your instincts: fear, love, pain. Choose the darkness, find solace. Suddenly, the darkness gave way. A new ray of blinding light burst through, illuminating what lay ahead. Yet it brought no clarity, only more confusion. "Mommy!" The voice, now louder, reached her ears with haunting joy. "Lily?" She breathed, the tension coiling inside her. But then, a chilling thought gripped her. What awaited her in that light? Was it salvation or another trap? She squared her shoulders, mind racing with swirling emotions. Panic filled her veins as the laughter morphed into a déjà vu of sobs, a twisted reflection of what it meant to lose. Taking a deep breath, she stepped toward the blinding light, its warmth embracing, yet brimming with danger. "Don't leave me!" A voice cried anew, a voice she thought she'd lost. But the moment her foot crossed the threshold, the shadows snarled, furious and hungry. "Foolish girl!" they hissed. "You'll wish you hadn't come here." And as Sarah plunged deeper into the light, the ground dropped away. What awaited on the other side? Would she truly save her daughter or seal both their fates? The blinding light enveloped Sarah, swallowing her whole as she braced for impact. For a fleeting moment, she felt weightless, untethered from the chains of despair that wrapped around her. Warmth replaced the chilling touch of the shadows, filling her with a fierce determination fueled by the desperate echoes of her daughter. "Lily!" she cried again, heart racing as she pushed through the haze. Colors swirled around her, shimmering, beckoning like lost memories finally finding their way home. But she didn't have time to linger on their beauty, she had a purpose. Then, with a sudden thud, she landed on solid ground. The air was softer here, and the silence thick with anticipation. Shadows still lurked around the edges, watching, waiting for her to falter. She stood quickly, scanning her surroundings for any sign of her daughter. "Mommy!" That sweet, innocent voice trembled in the air, pulling her toward a dazzling horizon where the shadows thinned. Sarah's heart soared. She sprinted toward the sound, each step echoing the urgency pounding in her chest. Fear and hope twisted within her, but she pushed through, determined not to let anything stop her. Suddenly, she burst into a clearing, sunlight illuminating everything with a glow that felt like life itself. There, in the center, stood Lily, wide-eyed and trembling, a vision of purity surrounded by darkness that seemed determined to shift back in. Lily! But before she could reach her, a wall of swirling shadow formed, crackling with malice. It towered, blocking her path, fingers of darkness stretching out to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. "You can't have her!" Sarah shouted, defiance roaring through her veins. "Get away from my daughter!" The shadows writhed, twisting at her words like a wounded beast. "She's part of us now, Sarah. You can't stop what has already begun." Determination surged within her, fueled by the love for her daughter. Sarah turned her thoughts inward, letting the memories of laughter and joy swell in her heart, growing brighter until they erupted like a star. "No!" she yelled, pushing against the shadows with every ounce of strength. "I will not let you take her." In that moment, pure light emanated from her, seeping into the cracks of the shadows, illuminating the darkness. The shadows shrieked, contorting angrily as the warmth expanded outward, a battle of light against the consuming night. "Mommy!" Lily's voice was clear now, filling Sarah with resolve. With a final burst of energy, she surged forward, feeling the light propel her as she dashed through the darkness and reached her daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Mommy, I was scared." "Me too, little one." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as a swell of love and relief overcame her. "But I will always fight for you." As their bond sealed, the light intensified, driving away the shadows. They screeched in agony, their forms losing definition as tendrils of darkness evaporated into nothing. The very air felt lighter, like a breath of fresh air after being underwater for too long. But just then, the towering figure emerged, arching over them, desperate to reclaim its lost power. "You think you've won?" it roared, the ground quaking beneath its fury. "Together, we are stronger," Sarah shouted, holding Lily close. They stood united, love radiating fiercely, illuminating the space, burning away the shadows clinging to their souls. With a final, desperate roar, the figure exploded into a haze of black mist, dissolving like smoke in the wind. The remaining shadows flickered and dissipated, scattered by the radiant light, a symbol of hope clawing its way back to life. Silence enveloped them, heavy yet serene. The dark forest faded, replaced by a lush landscape bathed in sunlight, a sanctuary leaving the echoes of terror behind. "Mommy, we did it!" Lily cried, her eyes radiating with joy, innocence restored. "Yes, we did, baby." Sarah hugged her tightly, relief flooding her. "And we're free." As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting it with hues of orange and pink, a sense of peace washed over Willow Creek. They stood together, hand in hand, knowing they could face anything as long as they were united. In the heart of darkness, they had found their light. And together, they walked away, leaving behind the remnants of fear and stepping into a future forged by love. Now, as their journey comes to an end, I need you to act. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support this incredible journey. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion, because I want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic ending. Your support means everything.